the classrooms. And then I talked to the students. I told them, okay, so the best thing for you is, ano ba yung term sa walang sexual contact? Abstinence, yes. The best thing for you is abstinence. But, I said, the reality is that you don't practice abstinence. It happens. Whether kagustuhan nyo or hindi, nangyayari siya. Sabi ko, what do you do? Sabi ko dun sa class, what do you do? What do you do when you're sexually active? And they were like, so tumingin na ako sa principal and he was like, so I had to tell them, if you're sexually active, you need to go to a health worker. You need to go to a doctor. Ask that doctor, what should I do? I am sexually active. And then I said, okay, so now you're sexually active, you did not go to the doctor, you got pregnant. What do you do? So nakanganga pa rin. Nakanganga pa rin ang mga bata. And these are 15, 16 years old. And they are the age that are likely to get pregnant. And I said, oh, if you get pregnant, you go back to the doctor. And you do your prenatal. And then I said, oh, what do you do? Buntis na kayo, malaki na ang tiyan. Oh, so one was brave enough to answer na, oh, mahunong og eskwela. And ko, no. You cannot stop going to school. You go to your principal, you ask your principal, what can you do for me? I am pregnant, but I want to continue on with my studies. So that is just anecdotal, but I think that is the face of our teenagers right now.
Further ado, ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you our keynote speaker for this morning, the Vice President of the Philippines and the Secretary of Education, the Honorable Sara Z. Duterte.
Thank you. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum. Madayaw ug maayong adlaw kaninyong tanan. Good day to everyone. I am truly humbled and honored to be in the presence of Filipinas who are making an incredible impact in the lives of our fellow Filipinas, especially those who have less in life and those who are feeling lost in their battle against discrimination, in their fight for equal rights and opportunities, or in their struggle and suffering from sexual and other forms of abuses committed against them, against women and young girls. I just have something to share with you, a recent experience about being a woman leader, a woman in a high-ranking position. But I have to tell you that I never saw myself by my gender. I never presented myself ever when I campaign, when I go out and talk to people and say, piliin ninyo ako because I am a woman, I can do this, I can do that. I never saw myself by my gender. I always see myself as a person, individual, in my unique qualities. In fact, there was an FGD that was conducted for me, and it revealed there that people do not vote for me because I am a woman. And more men vote for me than women. Yes, surprisingly, there was an FGD that was made for me before I ran for vice president. And I took this up with my friend, female politician. I said, bakit ayaw ng mga babae sa akin? I mean, more men prefer me than women. And then she said, no, don't think about it na. Let's just do something that will make you closer to women. And maybe because that's just it. I do not see myself as a woman. I see myself as a person, unique. And so when I sit on a stage, I enter a room, I attend an event, I do not look at, oh, ako lang ba ang babae dito? Ilan ba ang babae dito? I don't see it that way. Very recently, I was in an activity. It was the Joint Armed Forces of the Philippines and Philippine National Police Command Conference. And then, sa atin na lang ito, dito sa kwarto na ito. So, I went in, and then I sat down on my seat, and then they did their presentations, and then we listened, and then there were comments coming from the commander-in-chief on how to do their work. And then, nung umuwi na kami, sabi nung colleague ko sa Office of the Vice President, hindi mo ba napansin na ikaw lang ang babae doon? And then I said, no, hindi ko na, ako nga. And then I said, oh nga no, I was the only female, high-ranking official in the commander's table. And when you scan both sides of the room, the left side, the Philippine National Police, all the senior officers were men. And the right side, when you scan the Armed Forces of the Philippines, all the senior officers were men. And then I realized, nung sinabi sa akin na ikaw lang yung isang babae doon, naisip ko, And I'm not saying this kasi binobola ko ang mga babae ha, but then I realized, sabi ko, according to the words of ma'am, it would have made a difference if more women were there as senior officers. And then their output, their ways forward, I think would have been better if more senior officers were women. So, sa atin na lang yun. Dahil it was just an observation. And after the fact, actually, nung pinoint out na sa akin na ikaw lang yung nag-iisang babae doon. And then sabi ko, oo nga, no? And then I think mas magaling siguro yung nila. Actually, that was one thing that was lacking in all their recommendations for action and their ways forward. There was nothing about innovating and innovation. And so before I share my thoughts about this gatherings theme, let me say that the work that you do truly inspire many of us to continue our initiatives to serve, help, and assist other women to become empowered, to become free, and become women who are giving other women the strength, the support, and the reason to pursue a better life for themselves and their loved ones. Kahanga-hanga po ang inyong ginagawa para sa mga kababaihan at hindi po matatawaran ang epekto ng inyong ginagawa sa mga komunidad. Gaya po ninyo, naniniwala rin ako na kapag ang mga kababaihan sa isang komunidad ay nabigyan ng pagkakataon maging produktibo, kapag sila ay nabigyan ng edukasyon at nagkaroon ng kapangyarihan ng kaalaman, at kapag sila ay nahasa na mamumuno, kaya po nilang baguhin ang mukha ng kanilang komunidad. Let me cite an example in the far-flung community in Davao City called Paquibato District. I'm sure you've heard of this. This is the stronghold of the New People's Army in Davao City for the longest time, since the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2000s, until 2016, when I came back as city mayor of Davao City. It has always been impenetrable. It's a community of lumads that gradually deteriorated while it was under the influence of the New People's Army. Most children of Paquibato were uneducated and malnourished growing up, but they had always been prepared to join the underground movement even when they were barely in their teens. Their fathers, if not farmers, could also be the members of the armed group. Mostly, the women, their mothers, were the workers, while the men were lurking around, ready for a gun battle in case government forces arrived. For generations, the lumads of Paquibato lived in a cycle of violence that robbed them of their right to live peacefully. It was a cycle of violence that also stripped them of their opportunities, education for children, literacy for women, livelihood, and employment for the men. Well, it is a far-flung barangay, a village, and like most areas in Mindanao, Paquibato's land is fertile. But because it was controlled by the armed groups, there was no development. The roads were craggy, there were no bridges, no schools, no health centers, no government presence. Just a people isolated from the rest of the world. But we cannot allow such an injustice to happen to Paquibato forever. Something happened during my early months when I came back as mayor in Davao City, and that changed my perspective on what to do in Paquibato. That story is better said in another forum, but something happened, and then I said, nakakahiya naman sa mga Davaoenyo kung magiging mayor ako and Paquibato will be Paquibato in the 1980s, and lahat kami dito sa baba, we are in the 2016, the year 2016. But sila doon, andoon pa sila sa 1983, 1984, 1987. Sabi ko, nakakahiya sa kanila at sa mga Davaoenyo. And hindi ko gusto na matapos yung term ko as mayor, and then they will say na, oh look, ano ba sa amin ang pagiging mayor mo? Wala namang nagbago sa buhay namin dito. So, I thought I had to make decisive actions in the hope of finding solutions to the root cause of the problems hounding the community for decades. And then, we did an innovation. We introduced Peace 911, a government-initiated but civilian-led peace initiative that required people to help us help themselves. One of the components of the program was to teach Lumad women to grow and produce organic vegetables properly. It was something new to them. It required them to become organized. It demanded their time, their attention, their commitment. And it also required them to know what they were doing. The women backyard farmers were taught basic financial literacy. And part of the program was to establish a market for their farm products. But this did not come without challenges. But we made it happen. Helping us assist the empowerment of women in Paquibato was another empowered woman, a powerhouse of strength, and many of you here may be familiar with her, particularly in the work for peace and development. And she is Miss Irene Inday Santiago. Her long experience with peace building in Mindanao and in dealing with people at the grassroots helped us slowly change the landscape of chaos in Paquibato into a landscape of peace. And right before I stepped down as mayor in last year, in 2022, Davao City was finally, after decades, declared insurgency-free city. But for another forum, I will just have to say na dahil nadaanan namin yon, tinapos namin ang decades-long problem in Paquibato City in 4 years. I think sustaining the peace in that area is more difficult than gaining the peace, what we did in 4 years. Dahil ngayon, pag nag-iisip ako sa Paquibato, naiisip ko, siguro with a snap of fingers, baka merong mangyari, pabalik lahat ng problema. It's really very fragile doon. At the forefront of our fight were the women of Paquibato who allowed us to help them. And we owe it to them. Apparently, they were tired, exasperated, and fed up with the so-called protracted war waged beguilingly in the name of the indigenous peoples. Those women, unlike all of us here, may not have access to advanced technology and innovations. They may not fully understand things about the internet, or Facebook, or Twitter, or how their transistor radio works. But those women, they embraced a version of technology and innovation that was applicable and effective to change their lives and their community. Surely, there are other and many other Paquibatos in the entire country, communities that need technological interventions to address existing structures of violence, including the lack of basic education infrastructures for children and their mothers. Naaalala ko yung kwento nung I grew up in Mindanao, and naaalala ko yung mga kwento sa giyera sa Maguindanao. Usually natitigil ang klase kapag merong firefight between government forces and the rebels. And pag wala na, babalik na yung mga bata. And sometimes they stay in tents that are tattered with bullets kasi hindi na useful ang kanilang mga classrooms dahil nga puno na rin o nasira na rin ng mga bala at bomba. And makikita nung mga educators na hindi lang ang mga bata ang bumabalik at umuupo doon sa mga tent, umuupo sa ilalim ng puno para makinig sa guro. Sumasama din ang kanilang mga nanay dahil they were deprived of the opportunity to learn. And ang maganda doon, gusto nilang matuto kasama ang kanilang mga anak. Today, it is important for us to advocate for an inclusive digital education that will provide opportunities for women and girls to overcome any inequality affecting their development and involvement in the community. I am glad that we have started implementing programs such as the Innovations for Women Enterprises or iWomen project, which provides technical assistance to women micro-entrepreneurs. We also have the Women Helping Women Innovating Social Enterprises that helps prepare women-led social enterprises for growth, scalability, and subsequent venture capital funding. This year, and after this event, I will proceed to Laguna because the Office of the Vice President will implement the Magnegosyo Taday program nationwide. This is one of the, I would say, best practices during my administration as mayor. It is an entrepreneurship program for women, and then we expanded it to LGBTQI members and other underprivileged sectors. It is my earnest desire that the nationwide rollout will help stimulate entrepreneurial activities, create employment, and contribute to our post-pandemic recovery. Meanwhile, as we narrow the gender gap to digital accessibility, let us not forget to strengthen our protection mechanisms for Filipinas, including girls, from all kinds of violence committed against them at home, in their workplaces, and in online communities. Ending domestic violence may be insurmountable, but not impossible. The Department of Education is committed to protecting the rights of children in basic education. We have strengthened our child protection mechanism and launched the Learner Telesafe Contact Center National Hotline, where our learners can report cases of abuse, including online child sexual exploitation. On this note, allow me to acknowledge the support of our civil society partners who steadfastly provide psychosocial and legal support for victims of child abuse and human trafficking, an abhorrent practice that continues to violate our people's basic human rights and dignity. DepEd is also making sure that teenage mothers who have dropped out of formal school to take care of their children are provided with a second chance to finish basic education and pursue their dreams through the alternative learning system or pursue technical skills training through our TESDA programs. Alam nyo, very recently I visited Pikit National High School in Cotabato, North Cotabato, yes. And pumunta ako doon dahil nawala ang aming mga learners. When I saw the data, only 63% are coming to school. And so I had to go, and then I read the interviews of the principal. And so I had to go to him and tell him, you know, you're doing it wrong. You do not say that we understand that the children are in fear and do not want to go to school, and then it's okay. That's not how you do it. Told him, you have 63%, you need to be at 100%, so you implement your ADMs or alternative delivery modes, your blended learning program. You say, we understand that you are afraid to come to school, but you need to continue with your modules at home until you are ready to come to school. So I had to explain that to them. And since this is a high school, kinausap ko yung mga estudyante. Kasi tinanong ko yung principal, sabi ko, bakit apart from fear because of the problems, the peace and order problems in the area, sabi ko, bakit hindi pa mapasok yung mga estudyante? Sabi niya, they get pregnant. Sabi ko, and then what do you do? And then he says that, oh, I offered them the Open University. Okay, sige, so let's go up to the classrooms. And then I talked to the students. I told them, okay, so The best thing for you is, ano ba yung term sa walang sexual contact? Abstinence, yes. The best thing for you is abstinence. But, I said, the reality is that you don't practice abstinence. It happens. Whether kagustuhan nyo or hindi, nangyayari siya. Sabi ko, what do you do? Sabi ko dun sa class, what do you do? What do you do when you're sexually active? And they were like, so tumingin na ako sa principal and he was like, so I had to tell them, if you're sexually active, you need to go to a health worker. You need to go to a doctor. Ask that doctor, what should I do? I am sexually active. And then I said, okay, so now you're sexually active, you did not go to the doctor, you got pregnant. What do you do? So nakanganga pa rin. Nakanganga pa rin ang mga bata. And these are 15, 16 years old. And they are the age that are likely to get pregnant. And I said, oh, if you get pregnant, you go back to the doctor. And you do your prenatal. And then I said, oh, what do you do? Buntis na kayo, malaki na ang tiyan. So, one was brave enough to answer na, mahunong og eskwela. And ko, no! You don't stop going to school. You go to your principal, you ask your principal, what can you do for me? I am pregnant, but I want to continue on with my studies. So that is just anecdotal, but I think that is the face of our teenagers right now. So, we make sure that they can enroll in ALS, they can enroll in Open University, and they can do ADMs, the Alternative Delivery Modes, which is the blended learning program, which we learned, one of the learnings that we had from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Marcos administration's Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2028 is clear in its commitment to increase social protection programs and strengthen the implementation of laws protecting women in low-income households. Let me emphasize that the pursuit of gender equality is not solely a women's issue. Filipino men are encouraged and have been advocating for gender equality too by voting for me. By helping women access economic opportunities, for example, we empower them to be financially independent, improve the standard of living of their families, and are better able to ensure the good health and education of their children. It is my hope that by working hand in hand with this pursuit, we can provide more digital opportunities to socio-economic growth and gender empowerment, and thereby enable women to rise above any form of online violence affecting their mental and physical well-being. Let us stand together in our common aspirations for inclusive development and remain at the forefront of social transformation for the benefit of women, children, youth, and other vulnerable groups. Today, may we honor Filipino women who tirelessly and selflessly serve their fellow men and country. And in terms of women helping women, I just need to highlight the work of my mother, who is practically raising my children so that I can do more in my work and I can be with you here this morning. But seeing the presentation that there is an issue of unpaid care and domestic work. Napaisip ako, kailangan ko babayaran mama ko? Because she really is practically running our house. She takes care of everything. I just come in and out of... So, pag senior citizen, magkano kaya ang rate? I will start talking to her about her pay tonight. I will just say, Mama, it's International Women's Day, and I learned that unpaid care and domestic work is an issue, and that I think you should receive pay for your work. So, a happy National Women's Day to all of us. Ang lahat ng ating ginagawa ay para sa Diyos, para sa bayan, at sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino. Syukran.